Okay, so let's start that hemorrhage. Hemorrhage is that topic that which is very essential to know every medical students. Okay, and if you are going to be work in a hospital, in the emergency casualty either in your clinic, uh, in any extreme surgery or medicine anywhere. But this is the very important topic. As being doctor, you must to know these things, which are not very big things, but small basic things are there. Okay, so you must to know all these things. So we uh, definitions. What is hemorrhage? Huh? What is hemorrhage? Means whenever there is a leaking of blood outside that circulatory system, that is the blood is flowing in our body in a system, in that vessels, arteries, uh, veins, and capillaries. Huh? So whenever the blood is leaking from the circulatory system, that is called the bleeding or the hemorrhage. Okay, so it is classified on the various basis. So on the basis of that visibility, it's internal, that is concealed hemorrhage, and external hemorrhage. So concealed hemorrhage, that is the hemorrhage which are not seen externally. We cannot see that by our naked eyes that there is that blood is flowing, where there is the blood coming from the circulatory system, means there is leaking of the blood. When we cannot see directly by the eyes is means that is when the bleeding is inside one body, inside the brain, intracranial hemorrhage, inside our abdomen, intra-abdominal hemorrhage. Okay, and when the in the injury is outside the body, in our the skin, and the wound is open, so we can see that. So that is the external hemorrhage. Simple, which we can see, that is external hemorrhage. We cannot see, that is concealed hemorrhage or internal hemorrhage. Next thing, that on the basis of that appearance of bleeding. Okay, there is three types. On the basis of appearance, there is three types of bleeding: primary bleeding, reactionary bleeding, and secondary bleeding. Okay, so listen carefully: primary, reactionary, and secondary. Primary bleeding is that bleeding which occurs at just the time of the injury. Somebody somebody get injured and the blood start flowing, that is primary bleeding. Okay, and secondary bleeding occurs usually within 24 hours of the injury, but not immediate. Okay, means after 5 to 6 hours, 7 hours, 10 hours, but within 24 hours, if there is any bleeding, that is called reactionary bleeding. Reactionary bleeding means this bleeding occurs due to the reaction of our body. How it occurs? Mostly due to that, suppose somebody get injured, and the wound is closed, uh, and because in this type of bleeding occurs usually in the operative cases or in the major trauma cases, where the is primary, that bleeding is stopped to the coagulation or the pressure, uh, and the bleeding is stopped. Patient is giving that medicines, the blood pressure is low. Is suppose in you have a patient of the any operative surgery. So during that surgery, we give anesthesia. So our body works in the minimal levels of blood pressure is minimal. When the effect of anesthesia gone and body start regaining the normal vitals. Okay, so now the blood pressure again rises, and due to this again rise of the blood pressure, somehow in the body there is wherever the small clots are there, which are stopping the bleeding, which are due to the blocking of that vessels, that may dislodge from the sides. And maybe due to increase the blood pressure, there any ligature uh, which can be slipped. So that's why this is called reactionary hemorrhage. Means when the body recover from the anesthesia or recover from the any major trauma. So when the body recover, then due to the recovering of that body, that blood pressure rises, and some changes occurs in the body, and that time if there is a bleeding occurs, that is called reactionary bleeding. It occurs within 24 hours, but after 5 to 6 hours. So understand, the primary bleeding at the time of injury, reactionary bleeding within 24 hours after 5 hours, and the secondary bleeding. Secondary bleeding is, it's very important, because this happens usually after 7 or 14 days. So say after 7 to 14 days, how it occurs? This type of bleeding occurs due to the secondary infections. Suppose if patient is get injured, or you have any operative case, you have the closed case, you have the close all the wound, you have did the sutures and all the things, and that wound got infected, that post-operative infection. So when the post-operative infection occurs, then it starts that tissue starts disintegrating, and tissue start devitalizing of that tissue. So in that process, after 17 to 7 to 14 days, it happens sometime. Suppose any just any large vessels, veins or artery, it's just near about your wound, and when in due to that infection, that wound is engulf that vessel's wall. So after the 7 to 14 days, if during cleaning or sometime itself, that vessels get opened, and that there is the bleeding occurs. Okay, either you have closed the vessels by any thread material, and it due to that infection, that thread gets dissolved, thread gets loose, and the vessels get open, and then this type of bleeding occurs. So this mostly this type of bleeding most common in the case of the hemorrhectomy. If you suppose you have it hemorrhoid in a patient of the hemorrhoids, and after 7 to 14 days if patient comes with a heavy bleeding, then most likely that is the case of the secondary bleeding. Because why? When you ligate the all hemorrhoidal plexus, and your wound gets secondary infected, so after 7 to 14 days, when the infection, your complete infection engulfs that tissue, the tissue become dead, and so that plexus get exposed, and the wound is that the suture material, whatever you use, catgut or something, it's not enough to hold that vessels, so blood vessels get open, and then is that bleeding starts. So that type of bleeding is called secondary bleeding. Are you listening?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So you clear now what is primary bleeding, what is reactionary bleeding, and what is secondary bleeding? Okay, so next comes that
Sir, एक बार secondary एक बार से repeat.
secondary bleeding occurs due to that your wound get infected. So due to the infection, engulf or that devitalize all that healthy tissue, and it may slough out that complete wall of the vessel, so vessels get open, and that leads to the heavy bleeding. Okay, so next come to that depends on that from the site, means the primary site where the blood is coming from. That is, suppose this is arterial blood, or this is venous blood, or the capillary blood. So on the basis of this, that the bleeding is there, arterial bleeding, venous bleeding, or the capillary bleeding. So the characteristic feature of that all three bleedings is different, because the arteries has the high pressures. Okay, so that and so the blood coming out from the arteries with the heavy pressure. Okay, so and it comes, that pressure comes in the form of the pulse at the heart beats, that with its systolic blood. So blood comes out as a spurts. spurts with the every beats. Okay, means not continuous flowing of blood. Blood comes in the form of spurting, spurt. Okay, so because every when the heartbeat, that systolic pressure rises, blood come from the artery, then diminished, then again. So this is the sprouting type of the spurting type of the blood, and the pulsating flow, that is arterial bleeding. The veins has not very much pressure, so that's why the blood from that veins is a steady flow, means the continuous blood is flowing. Okay, in the arteries, that if in the capillaries, there is very not there is not flowing, here the blood is oozing. Okay, so characteristic of bleeding is different in all the type of arterial bleeding, venous bleeding, and capillary. So blood flow with a strong pressure in the arteries, blood flow with a less pressure but continuous. In the artery, there is sprouting type, but is spurting and pulsating nature. But in the veins, the blood coming from the that wound is steady flow, continuous pressure is there. And that capillary bleeding, there is means not blood flowing, but rather it's oozing. Okay, you means you know the difference of the flowing and oozing. Okay, means only small amount of blood is coming from that site, and it takes time to become a drop. Okay, so that's the oozing. So and so this then the cause. So what will be the cause of the bleeding? The most probably the cause is bleeding is the trauma. Okay, either it's means it's accidental trauma, either it's the bell planned trauma, that is surgery. Okay, either any underlying medical condition, any coagulopathy is there. Blood is any coagulopathy happen, blood is not unable to clot, and that some medical condition due to where the vessels are not means the rupture is set, or some capillary is bursting. Okay? So that is the medical condition, either maybe both together also. Okay, so the bleeding may be due to injury, either maybe any metabolic or any medical conditions, uh, and the it may be the combination of the both. Okay, so so here we know that. And then the, if the blood is continuous coming in the strong means in high amount of blood is coming, then what happens? If high amount of blood from the arteries and vein is flowing for the longer time, then what happens? Gayatri?
शॉक हो जाएगा सर.
Yeah, that condition is called, means the patient will go into hemorrhagic shock. That will be the hypovolemic shock. Okay, hypovolemic hemorrhagic shock. Okay, if the bleeding is not controlled within time, then patient will go into the hemorrhagic hypovolemic shock. So now there is on the basis of that amount of blood loss, there is some classification of the hemorrhage, means class 1, class 2, class 3, class 4, according to American College of Surgeon. And there is a one classification of the WHO. Almost all the both are the same. Okay, so in the class 1 hemorrhage, the person has lost up to the 50% of the total blood volume. That is called class 1 hemorrhage. In that conditions, how you calculate the 15% of the blood loss? How amount which how much blood is comes from a normal adult? So the normal adult of almost 50 to 60 kg carries 5 to 6 liter of the blood. Okay, so if we average take 5 liter of the blood, so the 50% will be the 750 ml blood. Okay, so 750 ml blood is 15% of the total blood circulation. Okay, so if the person is lost up to the 50%, up to the 15% of the blood, okay, so that hemorrhage comes under the class 1. And in this class 1 hemorrhage, there is no typical sign occurs. Okay, means that class 1 hemorrhage will be the almost asymptomatic. Patient can reverse. Patient may have no any visible sign and symptoms. Okay, on of the bleeding, he may have the pain due to the injury, but the any complication or any features of the bleeding, they will be not there, because any fluid resuscitation is not required in the class 1 type of hemorrhage. Okay, means if any average person has lost 750 amount of the blood, then it's okay. No, nothing is required for that bleeding. Okay, no active resuscitation is not required. It's obvious that you have to try to stop the bleeding to progress the condition, to progress the class 1 into the class 2. Okay, so all that measures, all the treatment you must do, but don't worry about the bleeding. Okay, so next is the class 2, when the person lost from 15 to 30% of the blood. Okay, so now the patients have features of that, that these bleedings that which occurs due to that blood loss, that is his patient is I already told you in the shocks, hypovolemic shocks. Okay, so here you find out that all the features of the hypovolemic shocks. I just tell you one thing. If any kind of that I told you na, if you have any patient of shock and you have no any obvious reason, then you must consider it is the hypovolemic shock. Okay, so just like that, if you have any patient of the hypovolemic shock and you have not any other reason, okay, then you must consider it as hemorrhagic shock. Okay, means every you just take every hypovolemic shock as a hemorrhagic shock until it's proven that there is not hypovolemic, it's due to the any other means not hemorrhagic, any other condition is there. Okay, in the same manner, understand? So if the patient has lost the blood up to 15 to 30%, it is the class 2nd hemorrhage. In these conditions, the body is start compensating to that hemorrhagic shocks or hypovolemic shock. That's why the heart rate increases. Okay, and there is the pulse pressure. I mean that the difference between systolic and diastolic is rises reduced. The body start compensating so that the peripheral vasoconstriction, the periphery become cool, calm. There is sweatings. Okay, so in that conditions, active resuscitation is required immediately with the IV fluids. Okay, however, the blood transfusion is not required. If you control the bleeding, then the resuscitation is enough. If you do some crystalloid solutions to control that hypovolemic shock, okay, patient can recover easily from here. So next is class 3rd. Okay, class 3rd is when the patient loses the blood from more than 40%. Okay, when the loss is from 30 to 40%, then it is called class 3rd hemorrhage. In class 3rd hemorrhage, the heart rate increases. Now the BP is also start falling because circulatory volume is continuous decreasing, and patients have all the clear cut feature of the hypovolemia. Okay, in that condition, aggressive fluid resuscitation is required. If you have the blood, then blood transfusion is necessary. Okay, the class 4 hemorrhage is when when any person has lost more than 40% of the blood. Okay, so here that compensatory shocks is converted into the non-compensatory shocks. Okay, so if you're not, if active resuscitation is not have given to this patient, then very difficult to save the life of this patient. Okay, so this slide we have just concluded all the kind of categories: class 1, class 3, class 2, class 3, class 4. Okay, so up to 15% means up to 75 ml of 750 ml of blood. Okay, so and in class 1, 750 to 1500 ml, 15 to 200, and 200 2000, sorry, to 2000 ml. Okay, and heart rate, we say in that class 1 there is no change in the heart rate, it will be below 100. Means it can raise little bit. Normal person has 72 beats per minute. So due to that bleeding anxiety, it can raise up to that 80, 85, 90, but it will be below 100. Okay, but in class second it will be raised above 100, in third up to 120, in fourth it will go more than 140. Okay, the systemic blood pressures in the class 1 there is no change, class 2 there is also no change in BP, but in the class 3 now the pressure starts falling, and in the class 4 it's very low. The diastolic pressure is also the same, that no change in the class 1, class 2 little bit raised. Okay, because body start compensating. Okay, so the diastolic pressure is little bit raised, and class 3 and class 4 that blood diastolic pressure become very low. So in class 4 it may be that unrecognizable, you cannot record that how much diastolic pressure is there. Okay, and that's why then the same respiratory rate is the normal in class 1, and as class 2, class 3 it will be start raising. Okay, and one very important thing, the urine output. Okay, so it is 30 ml up to more than 30 ml in class 1 means there is no change. Okay, because that normal 60 kilogram of the adult male or female having that urine output is 0.5 to 1 ml per kg per hour. Okay, means a person, adult person have the normal urine output 1 kg body weight per hour, per 1 ml per kg per ml, 1 ml per kg per hour. Okay, so if the 60 kilogram uh, adult is there, adult human, so in 1 hour it will be 60 ml. Okay, because 1 ml per kg 1 hour. हाँ, so एक घंटे में 60 किलो का कोई आदमी है तो एक घंटे में वो लगभग 60 ml के आसपास उसमें यूरिन फॉर्मेशन होता है. Okay, so the amount will be more than 30. That depends on the patient is that person taking water or not. So it should be means minimum is 0.5. So 0.5 to 1 is the normal. Okay, so the patient if 0.5 is on the rate of 0.5, that minimum amount should be the 30 ml. So 30 से 60 ml the normal urine output वो उसमें होगा. ठीक है, and class second में वो reduce धीरे धीरे वो कम होने लगेगा, क्योंकि that the blood pressure is rising, circulatory volume is reducing, so kidney is not getting the amount of the blood, so the urine output is start decreasing. And that features on the extremities, class 1 to no, and class second it will pale, and class third and fourth with a pale and cold. Okay, so mental status is also in that if class 1 the patient is alert. Okay, patient is well oriented into time, place, person, but in that class second patient may be little anxious. Okay, means he is oriented but he may be little anxious. But in class third patient may go into that drowsy, patient may be aggressive, and in class 4 patient may be confused and go into the unconscious state, that is coma. Okay, so that's why if you have the patient, you just means assessed very quickly. The next slide, there is WHO classification. It's almost the similar. Okay, but they add one more thing, that grade 0, there is no bleeding, so there is no matter of that this grading. Grade 1 petechial bleeding means that grade 1 you can understand that capillary bleeding means the petechial bleeding is the only capillary bleeding where that no blood is flowing from the skin. Okay, that in intradermal bleeding is there. Okay, then the mild plus then grade 2 had the mild plus blood loss that may be considered in class 1 or class 2. Grade 3 and grade 4, that is the significant amount of blood is lost in grade 3, and grade 4 had very severe blood loss. Along with that, intraretinal hemorrhage and intracranial hemorrhage also. Okay, so it means that that intracranial and retinal hemorrhage may also include these things. Okay, so now next comes the how you measure the blood, means how much amount of blood has a particular lost, how you count it that. Okay, so you just count if you are doing in a surgery. So that's why very now the standard protocol is that you have to weighing the swabs, whatever the swab you are using to soak the blood during the operative procedure, you just weight before operation and after the operations. Okay, so whatever the amount of blood is soaked inside the swab, you can count that. Okay, so the difference is counted of that 1 ml, 1 gram difference is counted at 1 ml of the blood in normal surgeries. Okay, but if the surgery is big surgery, just like very major surgeries, then and surgery is going for a long time, then it should be considered as 2 ml per kg, per ml, per gram. You are understanding, you are just getting my point. Okay, means you, this is the only idea, means you have to approximate, you can give you can have an approximate idea how much amount of blood has lost the patient, that person. Okay, you cannot calculate exact amount, but you have to just a little assessment of how much amount this person has lost. Okay, so you just measurement, that's weighing of the swab. Next thing is the measurement of the swelling, the closed fracture. So here's this little idea that suppose if some person has fracture of the tibia, so that the person may have the loss of 1 liter to 1.5. Okay, means 1000 to 1500 ml it can be lost into the fracture of the tibia. And same, the femur is longest and largest bone, so if somebody has fractured femur from the shaft, then it has 2000 to 2500 ml. Okay, so this is the approximate amount, so that you can calculate how much amount of blood you require and how much you can amount you have to resuscitate. Okay, so if the patient is having clots, blood clots, so you can also have little assessment by measurement of the blood clots, so that the clot of size of up to one fist, closed fist. Okay, suppose the clot having the size of my fist. Okay, जितना मेरा फिस्ट का साइज है, क्लोज फिस्ट का साइज है, अगर इतना बड़ा कोई ब्लड क्लॉट है, so it be considered 500 ml of the blood. Okay, so 500 amount of the blood is approximate equal to the clot having the size of a closed fist of the patient. Okay, so if the suppose have patient has 2 to 3 means the blood clot is as large as 2 to 3 closed fists. 3 means almost 1500 ml. Okay, and next these are the procedure which take little longer time, the estimation of the hemoglobin. Okay, hemoglobin is also when you got how much amount of blood has been lost, and measurement of the central venous pressure. These are the invasive procedure which can be measured by with that in the central line. Okay, so the central venous pressure also give an idea how much amount that blood has lost. Next important thing is that this is the very important thing, triad of death. Okay, that is called that physiological exhaustion means body is tired of due to the bleeding and due to the compensation. So this is the triad of death. There are three things: hypothermia, coagulopathy, and acidosis. Okay, how the patient land into this triad? If the patient has bleeding and it is not restored, patient is not get resuscitated within time, or the blood that bleeding is not stopped within time, then patient will land into this triad of death. And once if the patient is landed into the triad of death, then it's very difficult to save up the life. Okay, so how it develops? If the patient is having the bleeding, so the tissues get under perfused. Okay, so this under perfused tissue is going into the hypoxia that causes the acidosis. I taught you in the class of shock. If the tissue get hypoxia ischemic, then there is the aerobic respiration changes into anaerobic respiration, and anaerobic respiration leads to development of that production of the lactic acid. This is called the acidosis. Okay, so the bleeding causes acidosis, and due to the acidosis reduces the coagulopathy. Okay, so the coagulation process is hampered, and due to the when the coagulation process is not appropriate, then it against the bleeding, again bleeding. When the again bleeding, again that the tissue get under perfused, and the muscular tissue, if it is under perfused, it is then it get that tissue gets into the hypothermia, because the blood in our body, wherever the blood, the that the blood is the thing which keeps our body, our muscles warm. Okay, if the blood supply is less, then it becomes cold. Okay, so that comes to the hypothermia, and hypothermia aggravates the acidosis process. Okay, so and acidosis and hypothermia again disturb the coagulopathy. Okay, again coagulation process, so it causes the coagulopathy. So again patient goes into acidosis. So this is the cycle. If the patient lands into the once lands into the triad of death, patient gets hypothermic, hypothermic, then it disturb the coagulopathy. Then again the bleeding causes the acidosis causes coagulopathy, coagulopathy causes hypothermia acidosis. Okay, so sometime it happens that during the process of resuscitation, if that fluid, what the the fluid is given to the patient for the resuscitation is not enough warmed, and it is given in the cold conditions. Okay, means it is not usually the fluids are kept in the refrigerator, na? So that's why before, during resuscitation, before giving fluid to the person, you must keep it warm. Okay, if you give cold fluid, then it causes the hypothermia, and it aggravates the acidosis, so that your patient may land into that this triad of death. Okay, so that during resuscitation you must be very carefully that you must give the warm fluid, not cold fluid. And you give aggressive resuscitation and try to stop the bleeding, so that your patient may not land into that this triad of death. Okay, understand?
Yes, sir.
समझ में आया ना ट्राइड? ये बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है, बहुत ही इंपॉर्टेंट है। ठीक है, कि कोई भी पेशेंट आपके पास आया है, ठीक है, अगर वो शॉक में है ना? तो कोई भी शॉक हो तो उसको पहले आपको हाइपोवोलेमिक शॉक में लेना है, ठीक है? आप समझ गए हाइपोवोलेमिक शॉक है, तो अगर अनटिल अनलेस आपके पास कोई रीजन नहीं है, हाँ, तब तक आप उसको हाइपोवोलेमिक हेमोरेजिक शॉक मान के चलना है, इसको ट्रीटमेंट करना है। Okay, so when you are dealing with a hemorrhagic shock, then this triad of death must be kept in your mind. Okay, So that's why because it's very difficult to come out from the once your patient lands into this triad of death, then the almost the death is certain. Okay. So next is the management. So I think the time is up. So shall we continue? 4 or 5 slides are there. So you have to, you all have to log in again after a few seconds. Then we discuss the management.
Okay, sir.
Hmm.